And welcome back. We are moving into our first conversation for the morning. Very important, then again, very enlightening. The 37th Annual Convention of Caribbean Association of Pharmacists. Something that, of course, we would want to expand on so everybody could get the understanding of what's happening here. In with us is none other than Dr. Marvin Smith, who is the president of Pharmacists Association of Belize, and Beverly Coleman, president of Caribbean Association of Pharmacists. Guys, good morning. Loving the colors. Welcome.
Good morning. I think you flipped that.
Yeah, it was actually the other way. Dr. Marvin Smith is the president of the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists, and Beverly Coleman is the president of the Pharmacists Association of Belize. Good morning, though. And thank you for being here.
Good morning. You probably gave Beverly a heart attack.
I gave her a heart attack.
That's all. Your accent would have given you away.
And when you got in, you did say that you're from the.
I am from the Commonwealth of the
Bahamas, and mentioned that that's where God lives. He vacationed elsewhere.
Occasionally he comes to Belize every so often, but he lives in the Bahamas.
We'll have that conversation
later on, right?
There's time. We know how long you'll be here.
For the fact that we got to understand the opening was last night. Let's expand on this. Talk to us about the annual convention. What happened last night?
Well, the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists is a organization, an umbrella group, if you will, of pharmacy associations and members in all of the English-speaking Caribbean, Aruba, Curacao, Belize, Suriname, and Guyana. Wow. And so all of us came together last night. We have representatives from most of our countries here. We have this meeting, our annual general meeting, and we do our business and an educational summit every year during this time in August. And so this year, we're here in Belize. Last time we came was 2004.
Wow.
So we had a wonderful opening last night. Dr. Figueroa, the CEO of the Ministry of Health, was there. Dr. Miranda, Miranda, that's her name, right?
Yes,
yeah,
Dr. Chamberlain Miranda.
Yes, gave us a wonderful keynote address. They let me and Beverly say a couple of words. And we had a full room at the Radisson Fort George, and it was an incredible time. Yeah. The Pharmacy Association of Belize did a wonderful job kicking us off. They're our host for the week, and we're just having an incredible time here in Belize.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, at this particular meeting, obviously, you have representatives from Pharmacists Association across the Caribbean coming together. And you were speaking about educational sessions that will take place. But obviously, there is some time dedicated to look at the landscape across the Caribbean for your particular profession. And I want to get into what are some of perhaps the emerging challenges that we see in the Caribbean when it comes to executing your duties as pharmacists.
Well, where that is concerned, as I had mentioned in my address last night, is that the 37th Annual Convention of the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists comes to Belize at a very important time in our country.
Yes.
We celebrate the past, and we're looking to the future because we are eagerly awaiting the redrafting of the legislature that governs our profession here in this country. And what we are learning and what we have learned from CAP, because we have very close bonds with CAP, is that it's not a problem that's unique to us, you know. It's something that we all face, you know, in our respective countries. Yeah. So getting together like this, we bring our ideas to the table, we share, and we learn, you know, we learn from each other. So.
When we look at some of the cross-regional issues, one of the key things is education reform in pharmacy. I'm so pleased that the University of Belize has now moved into the bachelor's program here. That's going to afford the pharmacists and the local students here an opportunity to become fully qualified in pharmacy at home. And that's an amazing experience. Those are the things we need to expand across the region. A big issue for us is also access to not just care, but quality medications. It's incredible when we look at the fact that we see ourselves as small, but we're really a huge global market. We're over $300 million is spent every year buying medications in the Caribbean region. We are a huge market, and so we want to make sure that we're getting the best for our value, because it's, in a lot of these countries, yours and mine, It's the tax dollars that are really the government's the major provider of healthcare. One of the other issues that we really want to stress that we see as a growing matter for concern for us is the ability for pharmacists to really practice at the scope that they're able. There's nothing to do with degrees. I get a doctorate in pharmacy, other people have bachelors. It is taking the skills you learn and being able to do more than just dispense. And so the ability to have pharmacists practice on the wards as clinical pharmacists, work in regulatory areas as drug inspectors, become more immersed in their educational systems as professors and researchers. So that has to be something driven really from the association. As professionals, we have to take ownership of our profession. And so that's one of the things that we're really going to be pushing. I talked about it last night. Be proud to be a Caribbean pharmacist, because having schooled in pharmacy schools in the US and worked there, I can tell you, we have the best pharmacists in the Caribbean. You know why? We do more with very often, which is a lot less. And we always do it right.
That's right.
Well, and I want to get into that because that has been a challenge. You know, when you speak of the industry itself and how it has been growing, if I am to reflect on the Belizean community, we can tell by the number of pharmacies that have been opened over the past couple of years. They're like corner stores now, you know, but I think one of the challenges we face, Beverly, and I appreciate what you said in the beginning in terms of the reform that will take place in Belize, is that there isn't thorough enforcement. So I think the public's perception as to what a pharmacist's role is very different from what it actually should be. And it is, I think, both in a situation where the assumption is that pharmacists can prescribe, and also in the opposite scope where they feel like the person attending to them in a pharmacy may not be very sure about what they're doing. In other words, you come in and you Google something and you know exactly what needs to be done. How do we battle these particular mentalities across the Caribbean to have people understand that you have a professional code that you must adhere to, and it goes on both ends, and having the public understands and pharmacists understand as well?
Let me speak for the region as a whole. And I'm not a stranger to Belize. I've been here a number of times. So I've seen the influx of what you speak. But to be treated as a professional, you have to act like a professional.
Yes.
And this is, again, comes from this professional pride, this awareness. One of the things that we do in the association is develop and enforce and strengthen our ethical standards. And I think that's the first thing. As president, I talk a lot about optics. I tell my executive, anywhere you go, you got to wear the logo. You got to make sure you dress right. And so even as a professional, our optics are key, because 90% of what we absorb in communication comes from our eyes, not from our ears. And so those sort of things, if I having sat on the Pharmacy Council home for a number of years, I hear the complaints. Well, I went to this pharmacy and they didn't want to give me this. So, but I know where to go.
They know which one will give it.
And I always say, if we want to change what's happening in our profession, we have to be the ones to do the change. So the enforcement, government can hire the best inspectors, they can bring everybody in, but the best enforcement is self-enforcement. All right? And so when we as pharmacists start to respect ourselves and our profession, and the association is a key way of driving that. And I'm so proud of the work that President Coleman is doing here. And I've known the last 3 or 4 presidents of the Pharmacists Association of Belize, and they all drive that professional pride. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it's going to come.
But you know,
and I want to get Bev to comment, Beverly to comment on that, because I think it is important, you know, and not to say that there are some very good pharmacists in this country, and I think people know who to go to respectable, when to go to respectable pharmacies, and as Dr. Marvin mentioned, when they can't get what they want, they know where to go. But obviously this is I'm sure a frustrating challenge for those who are professionals in this particular field. What are the mechanisms in terms of being able to not just enforce, but I like what Dr. Marvin is saying, it's more a self regulation. You know what you should do, you know what should be allowed for, and it's following through with that.
And it's not only knowing what you should do, it's knowing your worth.
Yeah.
You know, going to school, earning that degree, you know, that should count for something, right? And as Dr. Smith said, it's something that our local association has been pushing for years, you know, and it's not, as he said, it's not something that is going to happen overnight, but we have seen change. Maybe baby steps, but they're steps nonetheless, right? And it's a cause of contention, because of course we're all by nature we're resistant to change, but pharmacy was once a well-sung, respected profession, and for me and for a lot of my colleagues, pharmacy is not a job. It's a passion that we have, and we carry out our daily work in that way. In whatever setting I am, and the subject of pharmacy would come up, I always tell people, you be comfortable, you build a rapport with your pharmacist, and pharmacy plays an important role, because patients will tell the pharmacist lots of things that they won't tell the doctor.
That is true.
Definitely.
Right? So we do play an important role. And I think it, as I said before, it goes back to knowing your self-worth. We don't just stand behind a counter and count pills. We have never done that.
I love the fact that you brought up the passionate part of being a pharmacist. In today's day and age, especially here in Belize, we notice that there are a lot of people actually venturing off into becoming a pharmacist. Now, becoming a pharmacist, there are complications to it, especially education-wise, in trying to understand the medication and the reason for the medication and how it plays its work. So there, at this particular point, we know for a fact that for those, it seems that the advocacy for it is actually working. For those who are venturing on into it, have got the passion of wanting to help people. We're now at another step. There's now the associate's degree in it. Now we're jumping into the bachelor's degree. How important is that to our country, to the Caribbean? And then how important is it for us to get to the other step as you are president?
I think we have to remember that the important step is not so much that you're moving from one degree to the next. That's really the effect. And in a lot of cases, a side effect. The important thing is that you have a core group of people who have realized the priority of extending the educational process. Not just in time, but in detail. And so that means that your pharmacists are going to come out with more tools, more readily prepared to meet the challenges that they're going to have. But what it also means is that Belize, as a country, has taken a mandate that we will educate our own. I believe in this concept called cultural competency. You cannot effectively treat people around you unless you understand how they live. You understand what makes them tick. All right? And so the best Belize pharmacists are going to come when Belize trains their own. The best Jamaican pharmacists will be trained in Jamaica. The best Bahamian pharmacists. I train in the States. We have a program in the Bahamas now. Those young kids there are going to come out better culturally trained, because most of healthcare comes up here. It's about how you live. And so that to me is the real benefit of the Belize program. And so whether they move from there to the Farm D or anywhere else, as long as Belize is driving the component of Belize education, so that when they graduate from that university, they're not just proud to be pharmacists. They're proud to be Belizean pharmacists who trained in Belize. That is key for us. And I'm hoping as president, I'm advocating that all of our countries put a home program at whatever level. You may only be able to do a diploma or an associate, but start, because you give your own people. All right? I tell this all the time. I'm a kid from the ghetto in the Bahamas. All right? I grew up poor. I was blessed to be able to go to school. all right? But to do it, I had to get on a plane and go to somebody else's country. When we start opening education to our own people, where they can stay home, then obviously the numbers will increase. And as the numbers increase, the quality will increase, because they will drive each other.
But what about the quality of being exposed? Like, for instance, with the CSME coming on board. What about me being a pharmacist and I want to carry my knowledge elsewhere, and when I get there, I get something else, and I want to bring that home after a few years? Is this good for us?
Oh, I love what you do, because you know why? That's why we have conferences. That's why we're here now. When you come, so all these pharmacists who have come to Belize for our 37th convention are being exposed to Belizean pharmacy. And then as they sit and talk, they're being exposed to Bahamian pharmacy and St. Vincent pharmacy. You don't have to live somewhere else to be exposed, okay? We see it all the time. You can visit. That's why we have tourists. Okay? And those nice little tablets we have, and the internet and everything else. But you want to be around the people you're serving.
Yeah.
Okay? And so often we believe that somebody else, that foreign is better. Remember I talk about optics? Okay? I love your little pictures up here. None of them look like us. All right? So we're going to send you some pictures for your next pharmacy segment that look like us. Because the young kids who are watching this morning need to see pharmacists who look like us. Who speak like us, who come from the neighborhoods, who know what it is to run bare feet and go pump water in the morning. Okay? Because that's where we come from. And so that is key for us. And so coming to conference allows us to share all these different cultures from all over. And we have people from the UK, from the US, from Latvia, from Britain, all of them here, from Canada. And so they're going to get a full gamut of exposure at this conference this week.
Now, as much as there is a level of professionalism that is expected from pharmacies, I think one of the interesting things to look at is how, in general, healthcare is evolving. And I want to talk a bit about some of the changes that you've seen within pharmaceuticals itself. You know, whether it is the type of medication, how people access medication, how do we integrate technology and make people's lives a little easier, but still have that one-to-one interaction, which is important. And I see that you have some interactions and good practices, best practices coming from the different countries. Tell us about some of the things that you're gonna be seeing over the next couple of days.
Well, one of the things in terms of best practices is we are not just looking for best practices to review them, we're looking to start creating them. Okay, so for example, we have 2 of our programs are geared toward the research and discussion and then also of the use of marijuana or cannabis for medicinal purposes. And in fact, our journal, our conference journal, which is our research publication, the key article in that deals with the same topic. So we're not just looking to discuss, and we have one of the leading HIV managers from the University of Mississippi, Dr. Billy Brown, who's a huge friend of CAP. He's in to talk about HIV management. We have people talking about different other chronic disease states and different technologies, and we've offered this sort of stuff before. But our goal is not just to review stuff. Our goal in these sort of sessions is to set the pace. And so we're looking to set what are the Caribbean best practices in these areas. One of the things that's emerged is really this whole idea of technology. We have to remember that technology is a tool. It's not a craftsman. All right? And a tool in the hands of somebody skilled, like if you give me a hammer and a nail and tell me build something, you got a problem. Now my father is a carpenter. You give him a hammer and a nail, he build you a house. Okay? So we want to make sure that we're training our members in the appropriate use of tools. We just did a huge workshop in Antigua in April where we talked about the whole Pyxis, the Omnicell machines, which is a sort of, when you go in the hospital, you see like they look like the vending machines for drugs, and how we use them and how we keep them in clinical care. But tools cannot replace the craftsman. All right? And so we have to keep making sure that, like you talk about, we need to be skilled and know what we know, because our patients walk in with these smartphones and they can Google everything and figure out whether you know what you're talking or not.
You and the doctors can say it. Yeah, they come in self-diagnosed.
Right. And so we need to make sure that we're doing the appropriate training. And so that's a big trend. One of the other things that is key for us is how pharmacists, particularly pharmacy owners, are going to latch on to this growing trend of universal health care and coverage in the Caribbean. We're getting ready to launch our new Pharmacy Owners Group initiative at this conference, where we will be connecting pharmacy owners across the entire region, not just to buy together and come together, but also in terms of training and development. So, and the lastly for us, technology is a big thing for us. So we're unveiling at our AGM on Friday morning our brand new website. And let me tell you something, I went to our website designers and I said, I don't know if you like sports, but if you go on ESPN.com, you know they got a great website. Every bell and whistle, go on Yahoo. I said, I want everything that they have, we want. We're gonna have our own YouTube channel that every university is gonna have access to broadcast and put programs on. We're gonna have live webinars. We're gonna have live continuing education. We're video conferencing all of our members. And so we're gonna be using technology as the proper tool. And that's really where we're gonna be growing.
Yeah. And what about using technology to access your medication? Because that's really where we see the rest of the world going. It's not necessarily eliminating the face-to-face contact, it's just convenience.
Well, keep in mind the biggest aspect, and Bev can talk about this, of a pharmacist is not so much the dispensing act, rather than it is the counseling, the sharing of knowledge from pharmacist to patient. Because while you've Googled what the drug does, most people don't Google what you do themselves. And so they're not Googling if I eat this, if I take this. And so
how much sun exposure.
All these different
Exactly.
things.
Exactly. And that is the important role that we play. I do a presentation on medication management for our local Red Cross when they do their home caregivers training. And I always tell them when I do that training that we don't share medications. You know, that is something that I guess in our culture we love to do. You have a headache. I had a headache 2 weeks ago.
Oh, here,
I took
this
this. Here, take this. You know, and I always tell them, question your pharmacist. And that is something that you won't get from Google. You know. And
you
when
can
you
ask more specific questions.
And when I was a student and an intern, I was granted the opportunity to work at James Brody and Company Limited, and I worked with the greats like Mr. Christie, who we're mourning his passing this week. I worked with Mr. Shama. I worked with Mrs. Prince, and as a young student and an intern, you know, we're eager when we see our patients come in, and so you go and you know, can I help you today? And no, dear, I want to see the pharmacist. And they built a rapport with their clients, with their patients. And it's not something that comes just like that. You come out of school, you have all this knowledge, you feel like you can take on the world, but that is something that you have to build. And to me, no matter how much technology we have, that can never be replaced. And that is the important part that pharmacists play in the healthcare system.
Now, I like what you mentioned in medication management, because I think that is a part of what oftentimes we forget, that we have a responsibility as users of the medications to be able to adhere. And you know, the public health system purchases quite a bit of medication, and when you think of people misusing medication, in other words, they give you a course of antibiotics, but you take it 3 days because you felt good after 3 days and you stop. Or I'm on diabetes or hypertension medication and only take it when I feel like my sugar or pressure is high. So those are two issues there that I wanted to talk about and find out what has it been like across the Caribbean, and what are we talking about in terms of effectively helping people, users, understand the importance of maintenance and adherence to medication. And then we can talk a bit about the antibiotics resistance after that.
Well, I think the issue there is monitoring. And this is where pharmacists, particularly community pharmacists, play a major role. Because if I give you a medication you're supposed to take twice a day, and that's 60 tablets, and I don't see you for a refill for 2 months, and when you come back you still have pills, I know something's wrong. Right? And so these are the things that we talk about, and this is where an effective the effective education of new pharmacists is key. They have to understand it's more than just the drug information.
Yeah.
It is a patient monitoring, those sort of things. I do an exit course, if you will, at one of the U.S. universities, where I talk about what are some of the things you look for in patient monitoring.
Yeah.
And I always tell my community pharmacists, watch the patient when they're walking up and down the aisle.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that they're buying while they're filling a medication, is it also going to counteract? All right, those sort of things.
Good point.
Like some cough and cold medications, lower blood pressure. Those sort of things. And so you
Or
want
if you see them buying the herbal version of
yeah,
what.
yeah. And so those are the things you have to look at. We have to get to a point where it's not selling a product
Yeah.
that makes us valuable, but understanding the information of it.
Yeah.
And so monitoring is a key issue, and monitoring is the main reason why we end up with antibiotic resistance.
Yeah.
Because it's up to us to say to our patients when they come in, we're giving you this medication for 7 days.
Yeah.
Take it all. Make sure you take it all. No matter how good you start to feel, take it all.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you see them come back 2 weeks later with the same infection, that's normally what happens. All right?
They've stopped,
The
yeah.
first question you need to ask is, how did you take the last one?
Yeah.
Don't just fill the first one. Okay? Or if you see somebody back over and over again, they may be resistant to it.
Yeah.
So the monitoring aspect is key, and that's critical in terms of how we educate, because that's not in the textbook.
Now, this has become, it's a major concern for people. I'm amazed how often I speak to people and they have the slightest cough and they say, oh, I'm going to go get some antibiotics and take it, a 3-day dose, and feel better. And I think it's almost become, for many people, a panacea. You take antibiotics for 3 days and you'll be cured, when it doesn't necessarily require antibiotics. How much has this, and is it integrated into your AGM this year? Talking a bit about these issues, these potential threats that we may face, not just as Belize or the Caribbean, but as a global community.
I think generally our the whole concept of proper antibiotic use, or rational use we call it, is an item that we've been stressing year to year. And I think it's something that you can't just do in a professional setting.
Yeah.
Listen, we all got families, right? And being the first pharmacist in my family, everybody who gets sick, whether they're third cousin twice removed, because Nassau is kind of small, right? They call the house, and my mom would say, "Oh, auntie so and so, or cousin so and so," and I called them up. I said, "Okay, you running a fever? Yeah. You've been sick for a couple of days? Yeah. It's viral. Nothing I can do for you."
Yep.
And but I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I have to educate them on why.
And they don't always like hearing that.
Well, but here's the thing. I say to them, save the big guns for when you got big game. All right? You don't take a small gun to shoot an elephant, and you don't need something that brings down an elephant to shoot a pigeon. Okay? And so you have to remember, because when the real antibiotic, when that bacterial pneumonia kicks in and then your antibiotic doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, being the director of pharmacy for the government of Bahamas, I'm in charge of procurement.
Yeah.
And I've watched the trends move so heavy. Stuff that used to work 5 years ago now doesn't even work for the same reason. So we have to be so careful, because we're creating an environment across our region where we're prone for superbugs, because we live in a warm, moist, humid environment, right? Which is like paradise for all the germs and bacteria. And then if you become resistant, what can happen, particularly in small island states? All right? I mean, we're talking incredibly decimation, incredible devastation if this happens. So we have to make sure that people understand that, look, this is a serious issue. So when we tell you, don't share your medications, don't stop taking your medications, don't run to the doctor every time you get a flu. And then we have to tell our physician friends, right? Listen, stop giving everybody a prescription just because they came to your office. Yeah. Sometimes you need to tell them, go home, hydrate, rest, give it a couple of days.
Yeah. The information that you guys are dispensing here is extremely important. And it brings me back to now the convention that's actually taking place. Who can attend? Is it only the members? Because there are a lot of things here that you guys just mentioned that people are not cognizant of. And then again, they might not go out to read it, but they might listen to it. So how do we get the information?
Well, here's the best part about this,
Mm-hmm.
right? While the conference, the continuing education is for our delegates, for the first time ever, we are videotaping every single session. And it will be available on the new CAP website. And you have my card. I'm going to send you the information because what that's going to be able to do for us is we're going to be able to release the ones that are public ready and public appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not too technical.
Yeah.
We will be releasing them on our website so that in a public domain, so that patients and clients
Students,
and friends and
yeah.
students can go and access this. So students can get it anywhere because student membership in our association is free.
Okay.
Wow.
It's free.
Fantastic.
Okay, so this information is going to be available. You will see a huge over the next 2 years with our new YouTube channel. Okay, we intend to become the first hit every time you Google Pharmacy Caribbean in our region. It's going to be incredible.
It will help. We'll have it with having these presentations that we're seeing that are very interesting about HIV and
Yes.
legalizing marijuana and pharmaceutical use. But I want to shift just a bit because I think it's so important. You know, we're talking about it all the time. What of wellness? How do you see the role of pharmacists participating in the general promotion of wellness? We are talking about obesity all the time. We're talking about lifestyle diseases. We're talking about trying to reduce the number of persons developing type 2 diabetes and everything else. We're still facing, cardiovascular death as our main cause of death in this country. Where do you see yourself fitting in this promotion, this push, this drive towards overall wellness?
Well, Marlene, in keeping with the theme for the convention this year, which is Caribbean pharmacists contributing to the improved health and wellness of our communities.
Yeah.
We as pharmacists believe that we play a vital role where this is concerned. And we have been doing it for years, where, as Dr. Smith mentioned before, if in community pharmacy setting, he teaches that you watch when your patient, your client is walking up and down these aisles. I happen to work at Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital, and what we push a lot for there is the relationship that we build with our patients. You mentioned before about compliance.
Yes.
And it's the same thing as what Dr. Smith said. If a patient doesn't come back for a refill when they should, when they do come back, they've come back too late, at a later time, or they come back earlier. Right away, we question it. How have you been taking your medication? I am happy to say that as part of the new bachelor's program at the University of Belize, I know for a fact that one of the electives that will be offered is nutrition in pharmacy. And I think coming from the culture that we come from, that is very, very important. And when I saw that, because I'm happy to say that I'm one of the first intakes that will be taking on this program, right? I was very happy to see that, because it does play an important role. And the health and well-being of the of our communities does not mean taking a prescription, filling that prescription, dispensing the medication. We place a lot of importance on patient counseling, because as pharmacists, our main goal, our end result is always patient safety and patient advocacy. Right?
I'll take it from another flip, because health and wellness is an economic issue. And here's the thing. I always get the joke. In fact, I was coming to the airport, and one of the customs officers we were talking about, he says, "Oh, you guys come to sell drugs." I said, "No, man, we talk about wellness." He says, "Well, you can't get wellness if you don't sell the drug, right?" And I said, you have to understand that first of all, if we can get our clients, our patients to live longer, they'll be our customers longer. That's the first thing. All right? A dead customer you can't make no money off. Okay? The second thing is we have to find creative ways to make wellness profitable for owners. This pharmacy owners initiative we're talking about is going to allow us to speak directly to folk who own the pharmacies and say to them, there is a benefit for you offering things like blood pressure monitoring and cholesterol monitoring because it drives numbers in your store. All right? And we start relating these things not just to patient outcomes, but also economic outcomes. All right?
Yeah.
Wellness in the US is an $800 billion industry. Okay? And so look at the scales.
And not all that money goes to effective practices
No.
or healthy practices.
No,
yeah.
that's it, because they tell you to drink this and do this and all this other stuff. We have to find effective ways from an economic standpoint to promote healthy products. So it's not just enough to say take the cigarettes out of the pharmacy, but what are you going to replace it with? It's not enough to say move the chocolate bars and all stuff out of the front. What are you going to replace it with? We have to find alternatives to help drive the economy of this too. And those are the things that we're going to discuss.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it should not be an issue for a pharmacy to tell somebody you don't need this medication. All right? Because yes, I may not be able to sell that medication to them today, but I'm providing them services and products
Yeah.
that will maintain their health and wellness and still make the money.
And that's
Yeah.
that's what is important.
I like that. It's moving away from what people see as traditional, that you will only see the drugs and you can be able to access so much more in one. It's like a health center.
Yeah.
Yeah, traditional is a bad word for us. That's
Yeah.
like a four-letter word for the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists, because we always talk about moving forward.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
All right.
All right.
So obviously you guys have a packed schedule ahead and some very interesting presentations. What else would you like to share with the public at this point? Just talking about what you hope to be the takeaway of all the Caribbean pharmacists who are here attending.
for me, everything good in your life is personal. Okay? In 1976, pharmacists who saw the need to come together, put this association together. And like I said last night, a generation is 40 years. We celebrated 40 years last year. So we're now in the second generation. And I'm humbled to be able to lead this new step for the Caribbean Association. And the biggest thing that we have to do is we have to put aside all of the petty rivalries. I joke about where the Bahamas is, where God lives, and that's all good. But in pharmacy, we are Caribbean pharmacists, and we have to come together and be united. We have this term we use, the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists, family, and that's what it is.
It is.
I've literally watched young people when I first came into this association, who were kids coming with parents to conference, who are now pharmacists, and they've grown up in this association. And so we need to make sure that across the region, we're there to support each other, we're there to advocate for each other, we're there to maintain and help grow each other. And we are the smartest people, I believe, because, we got to know what the doctor knows, know what the nurse knows,
That's
and
right.
know what we know.
And
right.
understand the writing.
And then understand you as customers, right? But we have to also remember that it's not our intellect that makes us the professionals we are. It is our passion. I don't believe that people come to pharmacy. I really believe that people are called to pharmacy. I believe this is a calling, all right? And so we want to impress on every single person. If you're a young person watching this show, if you're a parent watching this show, and you see that you have a young person who is gifted, who loves to learn, who loves to help people, this is the profession for them. Don't send them to medicine, don't send them to law. This is the profession for them. Please don't send them to media, because you guys want to keep your jobs, right? So, come to pharmacy, and that's what we want to promote. This as not just a job, but as something you can give a life's work to. And that's what we want people to leave with.
Okay. Anything else from you, Beverly?
Well, just to wrap up, as I said last night, we thank the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists for giving us this opportunity here in Belize. As Dr. Smith said before, the last time this was hosted here was in 2004. So we really and truly appreciate the opportunity to build relationships and to network with our Caribbean colleagues.
Okay. Well, thank you both for joining us. It sounds like you have an exciting 3 days ahead, and we hope you continue to enjoy Belize as well as the rest of the delegates.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by the Veterinarian Association of Belize. So stay tuned.